They loved the angel version of you, the one who forgave too quickly, loved too deeply, and overlooked too much. They adored that softness because it made you predictable, controllable, pliable. They counted on your goodness to keep you quiet, to keep you loyal, to keep you from ever waking up to what they were doing behind your back. They didn't realize angels only stay where they feel safe. They kept pushing, testing, poking, convinced your kindness had no breaking point. They chipped at your wings like it was a game, mocking your purity, your loyalty, your compassion. Every betrayal was a little cut they assumed wouldn't matter. Every disrespect was a joke they thought you'd just laugh off. They believed angels don't bleed. They believed wrong. When the angel cracked, they didn't even notice. They were too busy enjoying the comfort of your patience, too busy assuming you'd never change. They didn't see the quiet shift happening inside you, the slow extraction of innocence replaced by understanding, by realism, by coldness. And by the time they realized it, the transformation was already irreversible. You didn't become a demon out of desire. You became one out of necessity. You learned that purity doesn't protect you from people who enjoy breaking what's pure. You learned that kindness is a language not everyone deserves to hear. You learned that sometimes you have to grow fangs to survive the hands that claim to love you. And now they fear you not because you're harmful, but because you're no longer harmless. They see the way you speak now, the way you move, the way you carry yourself. They feel the absence of the softness they used to exploit. They feel the chill of the boundaries they never thought you'd enforce. You became someone who doesn't beg for explanations, doesn't cling for validation, doesn't dance for attention, and the loss of their control terrifies them more than anything. They wanted an angel they could handle, not a force they couldn't predict. They whisper, "You've changed," as though it wasn't their hands that sculpted the new version of you, as though the demon they now fear didn't grow from the wounds they inflicted. They forget that you were gentle until gentleness became your downfall. The demon they fear isn't cruel. It's selective. It chooses silence over chaos, distance over desperation, self-respect over self-sacrifice. It isn't vengeful. It's aware. It isn't angry, it's done. And that scares them more than rage ever could. Rage means you still care. Silence means you don't. They don't fear your darkness, they fear the consequences of losing your light, because without your light, their shadows become visible. Their lies, their jealousy, their manipulations, all exposed in the absence of the angel who once softened their image. You were their comfort zone, their emotional safety net, their guaranteed forgiveness. They relied on your purity to balance their toxicity. Now they face the world without your softness shielding them. And that is a punishment they never saw coming. They try to paint you as the bad one now, because accepting responsibility would require them to admit what they did. It's easier to demonize you than to admit they broke the best thing that ever happened to them. It's easier to act scared of you than to confess what they did to the angel you once were. When you stopped giving chances, they called you cold. When you stopped tolerating disrespect, they called you aggressive. When you walked away, they called you heartless. But you were none of those things, you were simply finished. And they can't stand the idea that the monster they see is just the mirror of their own actions. Now they tread lightly around you, choosing words carefully, avoiding the entitlement they once spoke with. Funny how people grow polite when they can no longer predict your reaction. Funny how they learn respect only when fear enters the room. But the fear isn't of you, it's of accountability. It's of the truth catching up. It's of the realization that they pushed a good soul into a place where softness no longer survives. They created the very energy that now intimidates them. And the most poetic part? You didn't become colder to punish them. You became colder to protect yourself. Their fear is just a side effect. They want the old you back, but they'll never admit it. The one who cared too deeply, loved too openly, trusted too quickly, But that version died the moment they decided your kindness was a weakness. The angel they broke isn't coming back just because they regret it now. You learn to live without them in a way they never expected. You learn to stand alone with a strength they never believed you possessed. And every time they try to approach you now, they're reminded of the irreversible truth. They had the angel, and they destroyed it. So now they face the demon, not a monster, but a survivor. Not cruel, but untouchable. Not dark, but awakened. And the fear they feel is nothing compared to the peace you finally found. Because the real twist is this. The demon they fear is simply the angel they taught how to stop caring. They never expected you to rise from the ruins they left behind. They assumed breaking you would keep you small, quiet, dependent. But pain has a habit of teaching lessons strength never could. What they shattered inside you didn't stay shattered, it reconstructed itself into something sharper, wiser, untouchable. And that new construction is what terrifies them now. Because now you see through everything, the excuses, the manipulation, the faux innocence they hide behind. You see their intentions before they finish their sentences. You sense their patterns before they even realize they're repeating them. You've developed a radar only the broken ever earn. And there's nothing scarier to them than someone who can no longer be deceived. Your silence has become its own kind of weapon, not because you use it against them, but because they no longer know what it means. Before, silence meant you were hurt. Now, silence means you're done. It's a silence that doesn't wait, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. And that silence is a language they never learned how to handle. They used to love the version of you who explained your feelings, justified your boundaries, apologized for your reactions. But that person is gone. Now you carry yourself like someone who refuses to be understood by people who never tried to understand you in the first place. And that shift hits them harder than any revenge ever could. They thought breaking you would satisfy their ego, but now they're left with a version of you they can't access, can't manipulate, can't decode. They used to see you as emotional clay they could mold to their liking. Now they're dealing with stone. And no matter how much they try, they can't sculpt remorse into something they broke. Sometimes they try to return with kindness, as if kindness can erase the memory of who they were when you needed them most. They test your reaction, hoping maybe, just maybe, you're soft again. But you greet their attempts with a neutrality that sends chills through them. Not anger, not bitterness, just distance. And that is far more frightening. They look at you now and feel something unfamiliar, accountability. It creeps into their conscience like a shadow they can't avoid, because facing you means facing the version of themselves that caused your transformation. And people rarely fear you, they fear the reflection of themselves they see in your eyes. You don't need to punish them. Their guilt does that better than you ever could. Every time they remember who you used to be, they realize what they lost. Every time they see how strong you are now, they realize what they wasted. You became the consequence they never calculated for. Your detachment is the poetic justice they earned. You don't hate them. Hate would require emotional investment. You simply don't carry them anymore. And they're slowly learning that being forgotten by someone who once loved you deeply hurts more than being hated. Your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. When you were gentle, they didn't listen. Now that you're gone, they replay every moment trying to understand where they went wrong. The answer is simple. They mistook an angel's patience for permanence. And the irony? The demon they fear isn't violent, loud, or chaotic. It's calm, collected, self-assured. It's the kind of darkness that doesn't scream, it observes. It's the kind of strength born from survival, not destruction. It's the kind of energy people fear because they know they can't control it. What they fear most isn't your darkness, but your clarity. The clarity that let you walk away without shaking. The clarity that let you rebuild without bitterness. The clarity that made you realize that losing them wasn't a loss, it was liberation. and nothing rattles a guilty conscience more than seeing you flourish without them. Now they stand there, wanting access to a version of you that no longer exists. They search for the softness they once dismissed. They search for the warmth they once took for granted. But the angel they ruined is gone, and the being standing in front of them now is someone they don't know how to handle. You didn't become a demon. You became immune. Immune to manipulation, immune to emotional games, immune to people who mistake kindness for weakness. And immunity is far more terrifying to those who once fed off your softness. They taught you how to stop caring, and now they pay the price for the lesson they forced upon you. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? They break you, and then act shocked when you stop bleeding for them. You used to apologize just for existing, didn't you? You used to soften your voice, shrink your power, just to make them feel comfortable. But those days are dead, gone, buried. You no longer bend, you radiate. You no longer chase, you command. And that terrifies them, because your calm confidence exposes their chaos. Your peace makes their noise deafening. They ask, "Why are you so cold now?" But they forget ice is what's left after the fire burns everything it can. You burned for them once. You gave warmth, loyalty, devotion. They drained it all, and now all that remains is steel. Sharp, polished, unapologetic. You became what they forced you to become, untouchable. See, people like them don't know what to do when their favorite puppet cuts the strings. They thought they'd programmed you for guilt, for submission, for weakness. But you learned the code, rewrote it, and deleted them from your system. Now they're standing outside, watching you thrive like an empire built from their ashes, wondering how the hell you did it. They can't comprehend that pain can be alchemy, that betrayal can be fuel. They wanted to see you drown, but all they did was teach you how to swim in deeper waters. And now, while they gasp for attention, you move in silence, regal, dangerous, calm. They wanted control. Instead, they created their own competition. The irony? They miss you, but not because they loved you. No, they miss the version of you that made them feel powerful. The one that gave them validation, that fed their fragile little ego. But that person's gone. You buried that version 6 feet under your growth and left no flowers. Now your presence carries weight. It walks into rooms before you do. People can feel it, that shift, that self-assurance. And the ones who wronged you, they shrink under it. They can't meet your eyes, can't match your energy, can't handle the reflection of their own failure standing tall before them. You've become what they never thought possible, peace that's sharp enough to cut. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't prove, you simply exist. And that alone is enough to shake their foundations. They expected chaos, but you gave them elegance. They wanted tears, but you gave them silence. They wanted control, but you became a storm. They're confused, you see, because this time, your silence isn't weakness, it's a warning, a stillness before the thunder. You don't react anymore, and that's what scares them most. Because they can't feed off what they can't provoke. You've taken away their favorite meal, your energy. They ask others what happened to them, but deep down, they already know. You outgrew the cage they built for you. You stopped playing in their sandbox. You became too aware to be manipulated, too whole to be dependent, too wise to be fooled. That's what happened. Every time they scroll past your name, every time they hear your laughter, they feel that sting, the sting of someone who underestimated greatness. They thought you'd fade when they left. Instead, you evolved. You see, there's a cruel beauty in evolution. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, quietly, powerfully. You didn't post about it, you didn't beg them to notice. You just became, and now, your existence is the very thing that reminds them of their failure. They tried to control the narrative, but you became the plot twist. The one they didn't see coming. The one that rewrote the ending. Their favorite story about how they broke you turned into a tragedy because the broken one became the legend. And now, they stare at you, their jaws tight, their pride trembling. They're terrified because you shine in a way that doesn't need their validation. They can't compete with that. They can't copy that. You're not performing anymore, you're being. Oh, and how they hate it. Your peace irritates their demons. Your stillness screams louder than their gossip. Your joy? It's an insult to every scheme they plotted against you. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're indifferent, and that's the final nail in their coffin. Because when you stop caring, their power disintegrates. They built their identity around controlling your reactions. But now, you don't even blink. That's what happens when you find yourself. You stop participating in other people's chaos. You realize the greatest revenge is living untouched, radiant, focused, untamed. You don't have to strike back. You simply rise higher than their reach. You've become the calm after their storm, the silence after their noise. And that silence, it's suffocating them. They can't stand that you're okay, that you're glowing, that you don't need them to define your worth anymore. They'll tell everyone you've changed. But that's the point, isn't it? You did. You grew. You healed. You stopped breaking yourself to fix others. And now that you've outgrown their manipulation, they call it arrogance. They'll say, you've become distant. But really, you just stopped walking toward people who meet you with disrespect. You built a world where their opinions no longer echo. Now, your confidence doesn't scream, it radiates. You don't have to prove you've won. They can see it in your peace, in your glow, in the way you no longer respond. They wonder who gave you this supreme confidence, this calm composure, this effortless strength. But it wasn't anyone, it was everything they did that forged it. Every wound, every lie, every betrayal, you bled, and then you built. And now, they're the ones bleeding from the shards of the mask they wore while trying to destroy you. The tables turned quietly. You didn't plan revenge, you became it. Your happiness became the punishment, your peace the payback, your growth the vengeance. They hate it, but they respect it, because no matter what they say, they know deep down you're untouchable now. They're still playing small games, and you've moved to a whole new league. So when they whisper, "What happened to you?" smile, because they're finally seeing what they created, a masterpiece born out of their madness. You've become a mirror they can't stand to look into. You reflect everything they lack: integrity, grace, self-control, power. And the best part? You didn't have to destroy them to win. You simply stopped participating in their destruction. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them choke on their curiosity. Because the truth is, you don't owe them an explanation. Your existence is proof enough that they failed. They'll keep asking, but you'll keep shining, because your peace, your confidence, your new energy is the very thing they tried to take from you. And now that you own it, no one can ever take it again. So let them tremble in confusion. Let them whisper your name in envy, because they wanted you weak, and instead, they built a goddamn empire. They'll never admit it, but deep down, they admire what you've become. The same mouths that once mocked you now mimic your strength. They study your calm, your poise, your silence, trying to decode it like a riddle. But what they don't understand is that this version of you wasn't learned, it was earned. Every scar, every sleepless night, every disappointment, it carved you into something divine, something unreachable. You're not just healed, you're reborn. Now when they look at you, they see everything they pretended to be. You've become their standard, their secret obsession. They scroll through your presence like a ghost haunting them, unable to look away, yet too ashamed to reach out. You've become the reminder that their manipulation didn't break you. It built you. You are the living proof that their cruelty was your catalyst. They used to think you'd never rise without their validation, that you'd always need their applause, their approval, their crumbs of affection. But now, your independence is their nightmare. Your glow mocks their ego, Every smile you wear whispers, you lost the best thing you'll ever mishandle. And that truth burns hotter than any revenge ever could. You don't chase anymore, you attract. You don't argue, you embody. You've mastered the art of quiet dominance, the kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. And that's what unsettles them most. They can't fight peace. They can't manipulate calm. They can't control what no longer reacts. So, they sit in their discomfort, watching the person they tried to destroy become the very thing they can never touch again. And maybe, just maybe, that's karma's most poetic touch. Not that they're suffering, but that they have to watch you thrive. Every success you achieve, every ounce of serenity you carry, is a mirror reflecting their own failure. They tried to play God with your emotions, but you became your own creation. Now they bow to what they once betrayed, not out of respect, but out of fear. They were waiting for the explosion. They wanted the chaos, the shouting, the breakdown, something to confirm that they still had control over your emotions. But instead, you smiled. You didn't argue, didn't chase, didn't beg. You just looked at them like you'd already seen this scene play out 1,000 times before, and you had. They mistook your calm for confusion. They thought you were suppressing anger, that the storm was still brewing. What they didn't realize is the storm already passed, quietly inside you. By the time they betrayed you, you'd already accepted who they were. And acceptance, to someone like you, is deadlier than rage. They expected retaliation. They got silence. They expected fire. They got ice. And nothing unnerves the guilty more than being met with indifference. Because anger means you still care. But silence means it's over. You didn't block them out of hate. You didn't disappear to prove a point. You just decided that peace was worth more than participation. You walked away like a surgeon leaving an operating room after cutting out a tumor, precise, calm, necessary. They keep asking themselves, why aren't they mad? As if your emotional response is still their business. What they don't understand is that anger is temporary, but detachment is permanent. You outgrew the need for revenge the moment you realized you were already free. They wanted chaos. You gave them stillness. They wanted guilt. You gave them nothing. And now, that nothing is echoing inside their mind louder than any argument ever could. See, they thought they were special enough to disrupt your peace. But when you didn't react, when you didn't even blink, it shattered their illusion of power. Because there's no greater humiliation for a manipulator than discovering they no longer have access to your emotions. You didn't need to post, rant, or explain your side. You let time do the storytelling. And time has a cruel way of revealing who was real and who was just loud. You didn't need revenge. The truth handled that for you. They told themselves you were cold. They whispered that you changed. But the truth is simpler. You just stopped entertaining drama disguised as connection. You stopped playing therapist to people who refuse to heal. You learned the art of emotional control, the kind that terrifies small-minded people. Because when someone can't make you react, they realize they can't manipulate you. And when they can't manipulate you, they call you heartless. They think your chillness is fake. They assume you're pretending to be unbothered. But deep down, they know it's real because your silence feels too effortless, your distance too peaceful. You didn't build walls to keep them out. You built peace to keep yourself in. Now they talk about you like a mystery. They say you just stopped caring one day, as if it happened overnight. What they'll never understand is that detachment is slow. It's quiet. It's death by realizing they're no longer worth your energy. They expected you to spiral, to seek revenge, to prove your worth. Instead, you became everything they never expected: calm, distant, successful, untouchable. And that's what truly burns them. You didn't just survive the betrayal. You leveled up because of it. They wanted you to crumble under the weight of their actions. Instead, you became lighter. They wanted you to break. Instead, you became whole. and now they're left trying to understand how someone they tried to destroy came out glowing. Every time they hear your name, there's a sting because it reminds them of what they couldn't ruin. They threw everything at you: lies, blame, betrayal, and you just absorbed it, smiled, and walked away like it never happened. They keep watching you from afar, waiting for a sign that you're still affected, but you're not. You've moved on so far that even their memory feels small, like something that happened to someone you used to be. You became untouchable not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting altogether. You realized peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the refusal to dance to someone else's chaos. They mistake your chill for weakness, but your calm is earned. It's the calm of someone who's seen everything, survived everything, and decided to respond to nothing. That's real power, quiet, steady, and unnerving. Now they're left wondering what it would take to get a reaction from you again, but there's nothing left to provoke, because you've evolved past their reach. You don't live in the same emotional landscape anymore. You exist in a world they can't enter, a world built from silence, understanding, and control. You became the kind of peace they'll never know because they're too addicted to the drama that keeps them miserable. And that's your quiet revenge. Not vengeance, not rage, just the effortless glow of someone who healed without announcing it. You didn't fight them, you outgrew them. And nothing haunts the guilty more than realizing they're no longer relevant in the story they tried to control. You won the battle without showing up for it. You defeated them with nothing but self-control. And now, while they wait for the storm, you sit in sunlight, calm, collected, and beautifully unbothered. Because the truth is simple, they thought you'd be angry. You chose peace instead. And peace, in the hands of someone who's been through hell, is the most dangerous weapon of all. They thought betrayal would ignite you. They were prepared for the screaming, the chaos, the rage. They imagined you throwing words like daggers, shattering everything around you just to prove a point. But you didn't. You just smiled. That smile, calm, quiet, detached, became the thing that haunted them the most. They expected fire, but got frost. They expected to see you crumble, but you just turned away. Because when you've truly seen through someone, when the illusion dies, there's no anger left, only understanding. You didn't lose your temper, you lost interest. You see, anger is still a form of connection. It means they still have a hold on you. But you reached the level beyond it, the level of indifference. You didn't cut them off to punish them. You just realized they weren't worth the effort of an explanation. They don't know how to handle that kind of peace. People like them feed on reactions, on guilt, on conflict, on attention. When you gave them nothing, they starved. You took away their favorite meal, your energy. They tell everyone you changed, but the truth is simpler. You just got tired of watering dead things. You stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. And now, they're freezing in the cold they created. You didn't post about it. You didn't talk about it. You just vanished. That silence was louder than any confrontation could have been. It told the whole story without you needing to speak a single word. They call your calm coldness, but that's projection. What they see as ice is actually discipline. You mastered your emotions, and that mastery terrifies them because they still need drama to feel alive. They wanted you angry because anger is predictable. But calmness is power. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't play by the emotional rules. You became a puzzle they can't solve, and that drives them insane. You didn't win by fighting back. You won by walking away. You understood the truth that not every war deserves a warrior. Some battles are won simply by refusing to enter the arena. Now they replay the past in their heads, searching for a version of you that might still react. They scroll through old messages, remembering the warmth in your tone, the effort you gave. And they wonder how that version of you could vanish so completely. But you didn't vanish, you evolved. You outgrew their chaos. You realized peace wasn't something they could ever give you, so you built it yourself. Quietly, efficiently, permanently. Their biggest confusion is your composure. They can't comprehend how someone they tried to hurt is walking around so unbothered. They expected revenge. They got serenity. They expected tears. They got laughter. Every time they see you now, that calm energy unsettles them because they know they don't live there in that peace. You do. You earned it through silence, through distance, through the refusal to be dragged back into their circus. They whisper your name differently now, not with arrogance but with awe, because your chill wasn't weakness, it was a revelation. You taught them that some people don't scream when they're done. They just close the door and never return. You didn't need to prove them wrong. You just stopped participating in their delusions. You stopped explaining what should have been obvious. You stopped giving second chances to people who made first chances look like mistakes. They're left wondering, how can they be so calm? But that calmness wasn't born overnight. It came from surviving the storm, from understanding that peace is the loudest form of power. Your indifference became your weapon. Every smile that wasn't forced, every night of uninterrupted sleep, every moment of stillness, all of it was a declaration of victory. Because while they were busy plotting reactions, you were busy healing. You used to be warmth, didn't you? Soft words, open arms, forgiving heart. You gave them light when they lived in darkness, but they mistook your warmth for weakness. They mocked your empathy, drained your love, and left you empty. And when you finally froze over, suddenly, you became the villain in their story. You see, that's the thing about people. They love you when you're soft, when you bend, when you bleed for them. But the second you stop bleeding, the second you pull your heart back into your chest and start breathing for yourself again, they call you cold, heartless, distant. No, my friend, you're not cold. You're healed. They wanted a version of you that would keep forgiving. They got addicted to your warmth. Now you've cut off the supply, and they're shivering in their own emptiness. They thought you'd chase, beg, break, but instead, you vanished into stillness. Nothing terrifies them more than the sound of silence where chaos used to be. You became unpredictable, unreachable. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped seeking closure. And that right there, that's what drives them insane. Because people like them thrive on control, and you stripped it away with one quiet, deadly decision. You stopped caring. Now, every interaction feels different for them, doesn't it? That look in your eyes, detached, calm, unreadable, it unsettles them. The way you walk past without a word. The way your energy no longer bends toward theirs. They used to pull the strings, now they're the ones tangled in them. They miss the old you, the one who'd text first, the one who'd cry, the one who'd over-explain, the one who couldn't stand being misunderstood. But that version of you died the day they took your kindness for granted. You buried that version deep, and from the grave rose someone they'll never recognize. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You don't beg for love. You sit in silence and watch who shows up. And they can't stand that power shift because they can feel it. The reversal. They're the ones craving your attention now. They're the ones overthinking every move. You used to melt for them. Now, you freeze them out with a single glance. And oh, how poetic that is, the same people who once mocked your emotions now drown in the ice of your indifference. They wanted a monster. You gave them one sculpted from every tear they ignored. You didn't become cold because you stopped feeling. You became cold because you finally started seeing. You saw the lies, the manipulation, the convenience. You saw the truth behind every "I miss you." And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You learned to protect your peace like it's gold. You stopped explaining why you're distant. You stopped letting people who broke you ask why you changed. You realized not everyone deserves access to your softness. That's sacred now, locked away. guarded by silence. And yet, they still talk about you, don't they? Still trying to figure out what happened. Why did they change? Why are they acting like this? As if they don't know, as if they didn't push you past the edge again and again until all that was left was ice. They hate that they can't get a reaction anymore. They poke, they gossip, they test your boundaries, and all they get in return is that calm, dead-eyed stare. That's what eats them alive. Your silence, your control, your refusal to play the game. You've become their obsession. Not because they love you, but because they can't figure you out anymore. You're unpredictable, mysterious. The warmth they once took for granted has turned into a cold, calculating force that terrifies them. You know what's funny? They wanted to humble you and ended up breaking themselves instead. Because when you go cold, you stop feeding their ego. You stop validating their importance. And without your energy, they fade. Now they're reaching out again, aren't they? The messages, the "Hey stranger," the "I miss you," the "You've changed." But it's not love, it's withdrawal. They're addicted to your energy, and now they're realizing they'll never get that high again. You walk past them like they never mattered. You smile at their confusion, at their attempts to pull you back into the old version of yourself. But that person's gone. You can't resurrect someone who died for their peace. They used to think your forgiveness was infinite. Now they see it had an expiration date. You gave them chance after chance, and they wasted every one. So when you finally froze, it was justice, not cruelty. And isn't it ironic? The ones who called you dramatic now panic when they feel your detachment. The ones who said you'll never find better are the ones haunted by your absence. You became the silence they can't escape. They thought breaking you would keep you small. But pain refined you, didn't it? It sharpened you, focused you, stripped you of illusions. You don't need revenge. Your growth is punishment enough. Every breath you take in peace feels like a dagger to their pride. You walk with a different energy now. It's quieter, colder, controlled, and yet, somehow, more dangerous. Because the kind of calm you carry now, it's the kind that comes after chaos, the kind that doesn't flinch anymore. You stopped explaining the storm inside you. You let people drown if they choose to misunderstand you. That's not bitterness, that's evolution. You owe no one access to your emotions, especially the ones who abuse them. They whisper about you now, don't they? Try to twist the narrative. They changed, they became cruel. But you know what really happened. You stopped participating in your own destruction. You stopped giving them the weapon. They see your peace as arrogance because they no longer benefit from your pain. They see your detachment as coldness because they can't control your emotions anymore. It's not arrogance, it's boundaries. And boundaries feel like rejection to those who have none. Your silence became their punishment. Your peace became their paranoia because they know they'll never get that version of you back. And that realization hurts more than anything you could have said. You're not cold. You're careful. You're not bitter. You're balanced. You learn to stand in the storm without breaking. And that kind of resilience scares small minds. They're the ones who turned you this way, remember? Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation, it built the wall brick by brick. And now they're standing outside it, freezing, wondering why they can't get in anymore. They wanted to test your breaking point. Instead, they found your awakening point. That's the irony of it all. Their betrayal became your rebirth. You stopped craving their validation. You stopped performing for their comfort. And when they lost control, they called you distant. No, darling, that's called healed. Now, when you walk into a room, they feel it, that shift in energy, that quiet confidence, that dangerous calm. You no longer need to prove anything. You are the proof. They used to think they were irreplaceable. Now they're watching you thrive without them. That's the kind of pain no apology can fix. You stopped arguing. You stopped explaining. You simply became unavailable emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You left them to wrestle with their guilt, and that silence screams louder than any words ever could. They'll never admit it, but they respect you now. They have to. Because surviving what they put you through and coming out colder, calmer, stronger, that's something only legends do. They'll tell everyone you changed. Let them. You're not obligated to defend your growth to people who caused your wounds. The coldness they hate, they built it. The silence they fear, they earned it. And now, when they reach for you, they feel that chill, that emptiness where warmth used to be. It confuses them, breaks them, terrifies them, because they realize they created the very version of you they now can't handle. You became the mirror that exposes their guilt. Every time they see you, they're reminded of who they really are, the destroyer of their own peace. You didn't curse them. You just stopped carrying them. So don't apologize for being cold. Don't explain your silence. Let them feel the frost of their own actions. Let them shiver in the emptiness they built. Because this is what happens when someone plays with a heart that only wanted to love. Eventually, that heart learns to beat without them. And when it does, the warmth is gone forever. They thought turning you cold would ruin you, but all it did was make you untouchable. You're no longer someone they can toy with, you're someone they whisper about in regret. They turned you cold, and now they can't handle the chill.